What's up, everybody? Welcome to Recovery Revolution Live.
You got Brett's music.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that was a seamless intro. I did good this time.
I like the music.
We had to go through several.
Did you?
We found one, yes.
I like that. It's got a good vibe to it.
Oh, yeah. Upbeat, ready to rock.
Absolutely.
Recovery Revolution, baby.
There you go.
Jeff Johnston is our guest tonight. What's up, Jeff?
Oh man, I pinch myself every day how fortunate I am to be able to continue this journey, what I've kind of been, thrust into 6 years ago, and just honored to have this opportunity to, try to help people make better choices, navigate through all the obstacles that are out there, and hopefully the story I share, people can find a nugget of wisdom, or they can relate to it some level that we can start to change lives.
Absolutely, man. So for those of you who don't know Jeff, I'm guilty. Didn't know until earlier this week about Jeff. Jeff is what you would call a mover and a shaker for sure. He is the author of a book called This One's For You, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meaning. He's also a family man. He's Jeff and his beautiful family. He's a podcast host with the Living Undeterred podcast. And man, what a treat to have you here. I love people that not only find purpose, but find multiple ways to try to fulfill it. And, when you're doing that sort of thing, you're really putting yourself in a unique position to help a large amount of people, right? Because you're hitting them from different angles. Like some people like to read, some people like podcasts, so how's it going? And thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And again, I want to thank Ashley. It's just an honor to be able to meet people on this journey that really are movers and shakers, and that are active and are engaged and are advocates. And so I met Ashley, reached out to her. We had a great conversation, and now I'm here. So this is the beauty of cooperation and collaboration. And unfortunately, the mental health industry, as I found out when I first got into it 6 years ago, was very siloed, very agenda driven, very I'm right, you're wrong. 12 steps is the only way. Abstinence is the only way. Right. God is the only way. I mean, it seemed to be there always was something that was the only way, but then all the statistics said everyone's worse than they were a decade ago. So if that's the only way, we're in big trouble. So the reality is there's got to be multiple pathways to recovery. There's got to be multiple pathways to trauma and grief, and, just having a very good experience with your lived experience. And we get one shot at this, why not try to make it our best,
Amen, brother. Different strokes for different folks, right? And everybody's unique. Sorry, what?
I was talking to someone about that today. I was like, multiple pathways, I'm like, everyone says that they embrace multiple pathways, but then when you really get down into it, they embrace multiple pathways in an introductory level, but they're not really integrating them in everything they do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to say from now on, my pathway is connection. And that's my pathway. I only have one, and that's what it is.
Johann Hari said in his TED Talk that the opposite of addiction was connection. And I've been using that, and also vulnerability. I think there's something about the benefits of being vulnerable. And I don't mean that in a narcissistic way. I mean that in a selfless way, that in sharing whatever story you have, that it gives people that hear your story permission that it's okay for them to share their story. And so I've gone from meeting a stranger, like on our tour last summer, meeting someone at a campsite, and within 5 minutes, I swear to you, 5 minutes, I'm hugging them, we're crying together. And sometimes these are like two grown men that, don't know each other. And that is, there's no medicine, there's no pharmaceutical, there's no diagnosis or label that can be better than that. And so that's something that's free, doesn't cost anything, and it actually can have a great ripple effect throughout society. And so that's kind of where my starting point is, starting with the things that are easy and available and free, and then we can build from there.
Well, and I think we should let you tell a little bit about, you talked about your tour. And by the way, Jason, he stopped at McShin and met our friends John and Honesty.
Going back.
Oh, you going back?
Yep.
Awesome.
Just talked to Honesty yesterday, and we're coming back on October 13th. Yep.
We're all big Honesty fans. She was on a couple months ago. It's probably been
she's a
6
sweetheart.
months or more now.
Yeah, she's the best. Yeah, I'd be happy to share the story. So I guess just to kind of put it in context, 5 or 6 years ago, I think 6 years ago, at that point I was 50. I had started an investment company and was 23. Had built it up to, assets under management that were larger than most banks around here. And I basically am telling you this to put everything in context. So the rest of what follows, you can see, how difficult this has been for me. And so I sat there at 50, pat myself on the back, 23, started this company, never really had a boss. I've always worked for myself, failed, got up, failed, got up. And finally I kind of sat there going, okay, I've done it. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be married, have the kids, be successful. And, like life always does, when you think you got it all figured out, boom. And my life changed October 4th, 2016. So that photograph you put up there, my oldest son, I got the call that he died. He was dead, and he overdosed from fentanyl that was in his heroin. And so, in other words, he was poisoned. He was murdered.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's my son, Seth, right there, our son. And Seth was like any other kid. He was a great kid. He was a good basketball player, loved Michael Jordan. He was artistic. He played guitar. But he had attention deficit like I do, like Ashley does, like you do, like every human I know has attention deficit. Some have a high level, some have very low level, but we all have some type of inability to focus at times. And that's just what makes us human. It doesn't make it a disorder. And so I took Seth to see a doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, guess what? Your son has attention deficit disorder. Here's a pill called Adderall." That started everything. It started. I'm not blaming Adderall or the doctors. Ultimately, it was on my watch. But Seth was not a good candidate for Adderall, and he abused it, started selling it, and got into marijuana, alcohol, all the stuff that happens, and was incarcerated for drunk driving and breaking and entering. And then he got introduced to cocaine. That led to prison, and he got released. And within 2 months, after I would not let him move back into my house, he was found dead in a hotel room, needle in his arm, slumped over in a chair.
God.
Yeah. So my life just all of a sudden just paused and stopped. And the way I like to frame this, guys, is that death entered my life to make me a better man, not a bitter man. Now, that sounds dramatic, right?
It's beautiful.
But yeah, it is beautiful. And that was my mindset initially. And when I had to tell my boys that their older brother was dead, you can imagine how that conversation went. And telling my wife was the single worst moment of my life, other than the actual moment I found out Seth was dead. But I sat my boys down on the couch that day, and I thought to myself, the next things I say out of my mouth are going to frame and dictate the quality of the rest of the life of our family. My wife's over to the right. She's just a freaking mess. My 2 boys are on the couch, and I said, "Boys, I got some really bad news. Your brother Seth, he's dead." And they're 15 and 13. So that's Roman on the bottom, and that's Ian. That's my middle son. And, they looked up to Seth. They knew the problems we were having. They heard the arguments, and they saw the fighting, and they knew his brother was in rehab. And so they knew. And so the first thing my middle son, Ian, says, the son with the ping hat on, he's a Division I golfer, by the way, at the University of South Dakota. He's a senior.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and that's a whole different story. Golf became a huge part of our life. And there's so many great stories on how my son raised money and won awards and did all things for mental health in honor of his brother who died. Yeah. So, my son said, "How'd he die, Dad? Drugs?" This is a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
He knew. And I said, "Yeah, drugs." And then, I paused. I thought to myself, I got to say something impactful. When I asked my wife to marry me, I knew that I'd have moments. I call them dad moments. And moms have mom moments where you get maybe 4 in your lifetime. And these are very big moments where what you say next does matter. And I thought, and I stood up, cleared my throat, and this became my marching orders. And it's a chapter in my book called The Two Roads. And I don't know where this came from. I didn't rehearse it, but I'll say what I said to them. I said, "Boys, we have one of 2 roads to go down. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred. We'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of inspiration and motivation, and this can be the single greatest moment in our lives and those around us to make a difference. I'm on the second road, and I ask you to join me. And it was important that I framed it that way. I wasn't going to tell them. I wasn't going to, tell them what to do. I was going to show them what to do, but more importantly, I was going to frame it as an opportunity that you guys, like Seth had a choice to use heroin that night. You guys have a choice to decide what you're going to do with death now that it's in your life. And it sounds heroic and everything, and my two boys did great, but I didn't listen to them. And for 14 months, I was on the bitter road, the one road I told my boys to stay off of. I called my business because I own the company, and I said, I'm not coming to work for a year. Because I was an alcoholic. I didn't tell you guys that, but it's in my book. Since about my senior year in high school, I was a 5-6 day a week alcoholic for 30 something years. Yeah, there's the book. This one's for you. An inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meeting. So for me, it was really important to write the book and have people put it down and feel inspired. So I have to get into the abyss. I tell the story of how he died. There's lots of stories in there of struggles that we had, but the book ends very inspirational, very uplifting, very, very positive. And that was really important to me. I didn't want this to be a Debbie Downer book, And so, I called my company up and said, I'm not coming to work for a year. I'm an alcoholic. I need to work on things. I can't come in and set up IRA accounts for clients. My wife was really doing bad as well, too. We both were alcoholics before Seth died. And so what happened was for 14 months, I stayed home and drank every day. Every day. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live. It's an odd dynamic, but I just had no motivation. I just called every negative friend I knew in my head and said, hey, come on over. I got a huge pity party. Let's get some beer. Let's get drunk. Let's just bitch and moan. Let's get mad. And that's what I did for a year and a half. And my wife, I just watched her start getting worse and worse. And so one night we got drunk down in our condo in Florida that I since sold. And I looked in the mirror that next morning. It was December 24th, December 17. And I just looked in the mirror and I just saw a dead man looking back at me. I said, I'm done. And I quit. I haven't had a drink since. And for me, it's been the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I don't struggle. For me, it was easy. And again, you bury a child, and I learned something from that. And alcohol to me reminded me of all that. And so I quit. I know a lot of people can't do that. And I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm just saying for Jeff Johnston, not drinking has been a very easy thing for me to do. But so I thought that me quitting drinking would be a really positive thing for my wife. I thought, Prudence, I need to support her. And, here comes death again. It gets really hard for me to talk about. So June 29th, 2021, the day after my youngest son's 18th birthday, my wife died of alcoholism at the age of 46. We're married 21 years. They're right here behind me. That's my son. That's my wife. And I went from a selfish, capitalistic, greedy male, person to now half my family's gone. Very, very preventable, very predictable that what happened. And I just got tired of people dying. And so that is what drives me. And I'm not angry. I have no anger in my heart. I'm not even mad at the person that sold drugs to my son, Seth. There's no time for me to be an angry dad. I think we can right this ship by being compassionate and empathetic and loving and caring and courageous. And so, what happened from when Seth died to today has been the living undeterred journey. Wrote the book, do the podcast. Boy, I don't even know where to start. Started a nonprofit. Last year, I got an RV and drove around the United States for 95 days with my two boys and a documentary team just to talk to humans. I just wanted to go out. We met with 38 nonprofits in 35 states. And I'd never been in an RV at all. I just got tired of sitting home on my computer and liking and sharing and posting things. I just had to get out. So we went out there and we met with people, and some of these people like John Shinholzer and Honesty and some of the people I met around the country have just been phenomenal. And some of the strangers I met at campsites and fire pits and shopping centers, I owe them all gratitude for giving me inspiration. So, and that's how I met Ashley. Was I saw a post on LinkedIn and she caught my eye, and I reached out to her, and she's very gracious. We had a great conversation. I told her about the tour, and bam, next thing you know, we're planning on coming to Florida and putting on a good show and trying to change lives. And so, I told my kids one day, because they play cards and play poker with their friends, and I said, what I decided to do was to take my chips, put them in the middle of the table. I haven't looked at my cards, but I tell you right now, I'm staying to the river. I'm staying all the way through. I may run out of money, I could run out of time, but I'm not running out of passion. And I want to do what I can with the time. I'm 56 years old. I'll be 57 in 2 weeks. I want to do what I have with the time and the money that I have to try to save lives, so nobody has to go through what I went through again. So that is kind of my story.
Wow.
I've got a lot of other projects. I do the radio show. I bought an hour of airtime. So for 6 months, I've been doing the Living Undeterred Mental Health Hour.
Wow.
It's great. I own the hour, so I can invite guests. We can talk. I've had John on and Honesty on, and it's just, I'd love to get you guys on. I'm all about conversation.
Yeah.
I think connection's big, and we're doing our expo in May, going back on tour again. And then this July, I'm launching my app, and that's where I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've put a lot of money and time into this, and we want to do an app that's going to change the mental health landscape for Gen Z. That's my passion, is kids. I want to right this ship. The Gen Z is a third of the world's population, and if we don't do something about their mental health, we're going to be leaving them. It doesn't matter what we leave them. If their situation gets worse, it's pretty dire as it is right now. So, but that's my story. And I can't tell you, I wish I could reach out and hug you both, because I'm so lucky. I'm really lucky to be where I'm at. I'm very grateful to have my health. I'm grateful to be in a pretty good financial position where I really don't have to go to work. I can work on this. This is my work. I know a lot of people can't do that. I know people that have lost their only 2 kids to alcohol, and they got to go teach class the next week. I mean, I'm lucky from that regard. I have the financial means that I don't have to go do that, but I don't want to just have the financial means and do nothing either.
Amen. I wish I could hug you too, man, because wow. Just wow. And
yeah,
I love it though, whenever I can hear a story that's so devastating and heartbreaking like that. And it's, to know that just became a fire in you, and you have done so many amazing things with that fire. And, like you said, you got lots of big things coming. So,
but they're not, I had a podcast. I had a guest on this morning, and I was telling my guests, Ashley and Jason, that, to me, Seth and Prudence aren't dead. And when I stop talking about them, that's when they die. So as long as I'm around, I'm going to talk about them like they're still around. And a part of them are. When Seth died, his daughter was born 3 weeks after he died. So my son never met his daughter, and her name is Brighton. And every time I see her, I go, Brighton. She's 6, and she's just, I mean, she's just so special to me. And I say, Brighton, you brighten my life, and then I go get her dad's cologne, and we spray. She goes to school smelling like a supermodel because I spray her dad's cologne all over her, because she likes to smell like daddy, Yeah. And I always say, where's your daddy? And she goes, in my heart. And I said, well, he's in my heart too. And so we talk about her dad like he's alive. And a lot of people in her family, they don't want to talk about dad because it's too bullshit. The more we can introduce kids to death and the beauty of life and respect, respect relationships now, because they can be taken from us quickly, I think the better mental health kids will have. Instead of we manipulate them and we hide things from them for what we think is their own good, it actually creates a child that can't handle things when it happens to them when they get older, when mom and dad aren't around. So I'm letting Brighton at 6 years old very slowly get acclimated to, she doesn't know how he died, and she thinks he's living in his heart, and that's good enough right now at 6. But not at 16.
Well,
right?
So the first thing is, like, I have a couple of comments I want to. But the first one is, it was an overdose awareness event, and I made a video, and so I was asking people for submissions, and people wanted to give the video that or the picture they're used to giving, the one they carry around. That was the one that was a lot of times in the funeral pictures, and the suits. A lot of times it's high school picture or something like that. And I said, I want pictures of them doing stuff that you remember, them something they loved to do, or with people they loved. And I was like, ask the people that loved them, to make a slide or to give us pictures and say what they want on the slide, and we'll make the slide for them.
Mm-hmm.
There was this one little girl, and her mom asked her if she wanted to do it, and she's like, yeah. And she showed the picture of her with her dad, and then when it was shown, because it was, this was during COVID too, so it was at a drive-in church, and then it was streamed online.
Mm-hmm.
She was watching, and she was so excited that a picture of her and her dad were on there, because she never gets to celebrate his life, like, because of how he died. And so by letting kids hear about, even though we feel like we're protecting them, we're not.
Yeah. And it's tough. It's dicey. It's like, that's why I think that word acclimation is a good word. Is like, you kind of slowly introduce the child to that concept, and they know death. They're not, they've seen pets and grandparents die. And I think kids can handle more than what we give them credit for. And I think this element of society that wants to shelter kids and coddle them is just creating a huge generation of kids incapable of dealing with the brutality and the unfairness of life.
Yeah.
Because it's coming for all of us. I mean, death is, it's one of the certainties of life. And but it's nothing to be feared. It's nothing to be angry at. When your time comes, it comes. And sometimes it's preventable, like it was with my son and my wife. And sometimes it's not, like a baby drowning in a pool. I had someone the other day was commenting about how tragic my story was. And I just said, well, I respect the fact that you care, but I don't think it's tragic. Tragedy is, like I said, baby drowning in a pool, your parents getting killed by a drunk driver, a bear eating you when you're hunting. I mean, those are tragedies, but not alcoholism and overdose. Those aren't tragedies. They're unfortunate and they're unnecessary, but they're things that were very, very predictable, and the outcome was preventable. And it just, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to be pragmatic and downplay it, but it's like, for me personally, I don't, you can say it's tragic, and that's fine. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I just don't accept it. I just don't think for me it's tragic.
Well, and I think that a lot of people don't acknowledge, and this is probably not the popular belief, and I probably should keep my mouth shut, is that when people are in active addiction, they're in a lot of pain. Like that is how you cope with that pain, and it's significant pain.
Right.
So that, to me, is the tragedy, that people are in such pain, and so it's, people that are using drugs are not bad people. They're people that feel deeply and just can't cope with that feeling, and there's nothing wrong. Those are some of the most empathetic, caring people.
Yeah. And I think it's what Dr. Gabor Mate says, that all addiction stems from childhood trauma. And anytime you say all, that's a tough one to say. I'd say probably a lot, maybe most addiction comes from some event in childhood. Myself, I didn't have a bad childhood. I grew up in the literal epitome of the Leave It to Beaver household. My dad was a doctor, and my mom was like magna cum laude in college, and she, could have got any job, and she stayed home and raised 4 boys. And so I didn't have babysitters. I had a doctor dad, and pretty much at Christmas, if I wanted a bike, I got a bike. It's like, I was very fortunate. I wasn't, as far as I know in my memory, I wasn't molested. I never was hit. So I didn't grow up in an abusive situation. So my alcoholism came from not escaping anything, guys. It came from my curiosity of exploring and my boredom of growing up in small town Iowa. I'm hyper. I'm intense. I don't sit well. And alcohol was something that I just felt I wasn't trying to get away from anything. So if my alcoholism, I can honestly tell you, even my gambling addiction that I had for 20 years, that came from a curiosity of life and a combination of being bored. That's where mine stemmed from. But nonetheless, I was an alcoholic for 30 years, and I had a big, huge gambling problem that got me in a lot, put me in a lot of bad black places, dark places in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of times we assume that everything is for. I'm saying once you get into that hole of, it's very painful to get there, and crawling out is very hard. So whether there was pain before or pain during, it's a
Yeah, we talked about that tonight on the show about the different pathways of recovery and how they're just so different for some people. And I know, for example, my wife, she didn't want to go to AA meetings. She just didn't want to do it, and a lot of her reasons. And I think AA's changed was there was a pretty big, heavy reference on God, and we aren't religious, and I think she felt like if she went to AA, she was going to be forced to listen to a sermon, and that's not true. That was just something that I think some people that didn't like AA wanted to say. I think the whole higher power thing is important. I think I'm very spiritual, and my recovery has a lot to do with spirituality, and I get a lot of my spirituality from being in service. Giving to others gives me a sense of purpose, which is a way I can work on my spirituality. Spirituality is your purpose. It's your meaning. It's your connection to the universe, So all that's, I guess, I just very curious on what's out there, what's working. And for me as a living undeterred advocate, if I can take that to my followers and share, hey, guess what? I got this new tool to your war chest that when that beast shows up on your front door and wants you to get high or stoned or steal or lie, you can start slaying that beast with as many arrows as you can. And so abstinence is an arrow, AA is an arrow, exercise is an arrow, avoiding toxicity. So there's so many arrows that we can arm ourselves with, isn't it? Don't you guys think that way?
Oh, dude, I'm like super into it. Like, I've been doing the Way Out podcast for over 5 years, and I just started doing this last summer with these guys. But I love the whole idea of, everybody's story matters, and that the more voices and perspectives we can bring into the conversation, the more that we can learn and grow, and the more we equip ourselves with ways that we can help others, right? So
yeah,
I want to learn about every angle
Yep.
Of this disease as I can. The family gets sick alongside them, so that really is a very broad spectrum of different types of individuals. We've had guests from the legislative side, from advocacy, from judges to people that are barely even a month clean, all the way to people who have walked so many different pathways that my whole goal with this is like to add something of value to the stream of life. And not only that, but I want the listeners, especially, because obviously you can't put all those topics into one show. So, but the people that listen regularly and really take the time to soak up all this knowledge, man, I just hope that they walk away with some more tools for their toolbox, right? That's it, man. That's it.
We're such a society of fear and scarcity that I'm trying to get people to focus more on love and abundance. That, we got into this problem over many, many years, and we have to get out of it over many, many years, but we're not going to get out of it by judging and angry and arguing with people and fighting and pushing agendas. And that's not going to happen. I'm not going to say we're going to get out of it by just hugging people and telling them I love them. That's not realistic either. Right. But I think there's more benefit to the default option being love and compassion than the default option being skepticism and anger and those type of things. So again, I'm not lying. I feel very lucky. I really do. The time I had them in my life was great. Seth could have died at 15 of a car accident. Prudence could have taken her life at 40. You know, the reality is I have 2 of my 3 sons still here. I had, just a wonderful experience with my wife, traveled the world and laughed. And yeah, it's hard to see pictures and it's hard to watch videos and hear her voice. But, like I said today on a different podcast, I said, I cry probably 10 times a day. And of those 10, maybe 2 are gut wrenching. But I ask people this, and I ask anyone watching this right now, when's the last time you've had an absolutely gut wrenching cry and felt worse?
Right. No,
Never.
it's cleansing.
Never.
It's cleansing.
Never. Yeah, it's not possible. It's not possible to go to the gym and have your best workout ever and walk out of there and feel worse.
Right.
So
Yeah.
why do we expect sorrow and pain and grief to be infinite and be perpetual? It's not. It's impermanent. It's not permanent. So in my mind, when I start to feel that way and that feeling comes and I'm like, shit, I got to shut things down. I got to cry. My lab comes over, my dog, and he's my therapy. He comes across the room when I'm crying. My other dog could care less. He's a Vishla. He thinks I'm psychotic. But Camus, and that's right. He's named after my favorite red wine, Camus. He comes, I know I'm still a wine snob, even though I don't drink. So my cat was named Opus, by the way. So
my dog's name's Bourbon.
Okay, there you go.
He came with that name from the shelter.
Yeah, and it's like, I laugh at it. I have a bottle of Camus next to my bed. I do so many weird things that are not what AA would recommend, but that's my pathway. That's my pathway. A thing I like to do about once every quarter, since I'm widowed, I'm not in a relationship. I don't date at all. This is my marriage. My advocacy is my marriage and my 2 boys and my dad and stuff. That's my life. But what I like to do, this is not recommended. And Ashley, you're probably going to defriend me after I tell you this, but
I'm sure I do many weird things too. Don't worry.
But when I go out for dinner by myself, I like to look at the menu, get a steak, get a lobster, whatever. And I order the most expensive glass of wine on the menu. Okay. Like a glass of Cabernet. And I'll get it and I'll put it up next to my meal and I'll take some pictures because I know I'm going to post on social media and show my friends and stuff. And what I do is I'll have my meal and I'll talk to the waiter or waitress and we'll have a good conversation and I'll finish my meal. And they always come over and they'll say, well, Mr. Johnston, thanks for coming. How was your meal? And I said, oh, it was great. It was awesome. Thank you. And they said, well, I have to ask, how was your wine? Because, I didn't drink any of it. And I just look up and I say, I don't drink. And you could just see they just go, okay. And I can see they go back and they say, you won't believe what. And so what I'm doing is I'm getting them to have a conversation that this guy obviously doesn't drink alcohol, but I'm just showing them that I can put it right in front of me. And I am not going to let it win. And maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I'm just a competitive guy. Maybe I am psychotic. I don't care, but I'll never drink again. And I mock it. I make fun of it. It doesn't bother me. I'm not afraid of it. Now I know many people listen to you. They're not that way. I love you no less. It's like, I want to get you to a part where maybe you can become that way. I think our minds are so much stronger than we give them credit for. And even if it's a disease, you don't have to believe it's a disease. You can trick your brain. I'm not that smart, so I can trick my brain. And I can convince myself that it is a choice. And I'm not going to argue with somebody who says, well, Jeff, it's not. There's fine. In your world, you can believe it's a disease. That's your pathway. How's that going for you? My pathway is not. And if it is, fine. I don't know. I think the mind is such an untapped tool for mental wellness that we're not using enough. And I think there's a lot of people listening and watching and that follow my story that say, hey, you know what, maybe I'll try this approach and I'll just convince myself that it is a choice. And my doctors and everyone that was in my family that was an alcoholic, they're telling me it's a disease. You know what? Maybe they're not right. I don't have to believe that narrative. So, I mean, again, if you're struggling, what have you got to lose, right?
Sorry.
Well, I think, and my personal belief is that it's a maladaptive coping skill. Like there might be a disease or a condition underlying why you need to cope, or there might be a traumatic situation, or there might be just whatever, and I think that when you find other coping skills that work, once that dependence factor is taken off, there's a lot of stuff that it takes a little while, like depending on the substance, it takes like a year for certain chemicals to start working again and all that kind of stuff.
And full disclosure, I never did drugs, Ashley, so I never have the withdrawals of methamphetamines or all that stuff. So I can't comment on that, but I'm going solely on alcohol and gamblism. Those are my two addictions that I have. And I quit gambling the same way. I just quit cold turkey. I had a friend of mine one time say, the problem with gambling? And I said, what? He was a gambler too. He said, even when you win, you lose. And that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. If I win this bet, I'm just going to go lose it on the next one.
Right.
And that is so true. And it was a simple comment from another compulsive gambler that said something, again, non-pharmaceutical, free, no meetings. And it just, for me, it resonated. So maybe one thing I say tonight, somebody says, wow, I said something today that somebody said was one of the best things they ever heard. And I stole it from somebody I heard on LinkedIn. Maybe you've heard it, Ashley.
Absolutely.
Maybe you heard this, Ashley. Connection is protection.
Well, I mean, if you look at ACEs, you look at all that kind of stuff, that there's protective factors. So it's like people say, oh, you're screwed, this happened. But no, you're not. Like if you put those protective factors in place, same thing. So community connection is one of those protective factors for ACEs, having sports.
I think about it like buffers, right? Like every single thing I can do is like putting another barrier between me and my next use.
Yeah.
So all the different pieces that work for me to keep me in a spiritual path, to keep me feeling, well, to keep me in service, the connections that I've made, going to support groups or going to speak. These are all like another barrier between me and the next use. Cause we're going to mentally be relapsing way before we get high or drink. And, to your point, Jeff, it's like, if you do the work, whatever that looks like for the individual to heal and move on and find a better way to live, well, guess what? You can sit with a glass of wine in front of you and it's not going to phase you. I can go on a 12-step call and pick somebody up who's seeking help.
Yeah.
And I can get them from the dope house and I can take their dope and I can dispose of their dope. And I don't want to do that shit. I mean, I was like your son, dude, a needle in my arm for 26 years. So.
And there's certain meetings that make me want to use, and I never used any of the drugs they're talking about at them.
Because they're glorifying it, right? Like,
I'm joking, but so I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to take some of that and see if we can make it help somebody. So when you used to have a hard day what did you do before you stopped drinking?
I would, like a hard day at work, I would come home. Typically, I would start with a beer, have a couple of beers. And that was get a cigar, have a couple of beers. And then it would end up to be wine. And I'd end my night with, a full bottle of Cabernet or something. And it was 5, maybe 6 nights a week. And the days that I didn't drink were like, wow. I shocked myself. Like if I went 2 days in a row, I'd go, I just haven't drank in 2 days. So when you're counting in days and hours and you have a problem, I'm not counting in weeks, I'm counting in days and hours. Right. But that was it. That was the big thing was just, when I was having tough days at work, that was kind of what my release was.
Okay. So when you had a tough day, you drank. So what did you do when you had a good day, when it was a good day, or you wanted to celebrate something? What did you do?
Are you tricking me now?
No,
I drank.
Okay. So when you had a hard day, you drank. When you had a good day, you drank.
Yeah.
When you had a normal day, what did you do?
I drank.
Okay. So when you had a normal day, you drank. Now, when you have a hard day, what do you do?
I work out, meditate, and I read.
When you have a good day, what do you do?
I work out longer, I meditate longer, and I read longer.
When you have a normal day, what do you do?
I do that every day. So yeah, I don't miss a day of any of that. That's what keeps me from the abyss.
Yeah.
That's what so your coping skill to cope with a hard day was to drink. When you had a good day, the way you coped with a good day was to drink. And when you had a normal day, the way you coped with that was to drink. And now you work out and you read and you enrich yourself. So you changed that coping skill, and you brought a healthy coping skill. And so it doesn't have to be an AA meeting. It doesn't have to be complete sobriety for somebody if they use MAT. It doesn't have to be anything that's on paper as this is a pathway. It can be literally, if you used to come and drink every day and now you go to the gym instead of drinking, guess what? That's great. That's working.
Yeah.
It's a healthy thing. You're living a better life. Double thumbs up.
I have a quote that's exactly is in line to what you said, and it's on the back of our shirts, and it's kind of my marching orders, and it's purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. And you got to say that a few times. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So the point of me telling you that is this: had not Seth died, or my wife died, I don't know if I would have given up or not drank. I don't know if I would have stopped drinking. Maybe I would have, maybe I don't. That's a hindsight game. I'll never know. But that traumatic event I had was the impetus for me wanting to quit. What I'm trying to figure out, is there a way to get that without having the traumatic event? Can you get the same psychedelic high not doing psychedelics? Is there ways that we can get this benefit of something without doing the thing? And so my quest, my insatiable thirst for knowledge on this topic is, how can we get in the minds of specifically kids, Gen Z specifically, that moment when they say, Ashley, you're 15 and friends offer you a joint. What's that moment, that one thing where some kids say, I'm not going to do it, and some say, I'm going to do it? I know there's a lot of factors. There's not a right answer. And that's this passion I have in me, is trying to figure that out. Now, I don't know, the road Seth was on, is multifaceted. It was, depression and body dysmorphia and, alcohol and marijuana. So, I mean, he could have quit drinking and maybe it was something else. Who knows? We can play that game forever. But, there are a large subset of kids that, never have done drugs or alcohol. Why? What makes them different? They're not any better. They just made better choices. Is it nurture? Is it nature? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And that's what keeps me going, is trying to find these solutions and these answers. So the next Seth that, is going to make what could be a life-ending, life-altering choice decides not to, but not have to wait for something traumatic to happen to do it. You know what I'm trying to say?
You want my
I'd love to
idea
hear
on
it.
this?
I'd love to hear it.
So belonging is a big thing. And I think that when you don't feel like you fit in, or you don't feel safe, or you don't feel, whatever the case may be, no matter what the reason, that's very hard. And when children are raised with that self-esteem, or they have a safe place to go and say they messed up, how do I fix this?
Right.
I think that creates that resiliency. I think that self-esteem, when they're, whatever the factor that gets them to believe that they're enough, I think gets them through some really hard times. And I think I don't know that there's anybody there might be people that never try stuff, but they struggle with other things. I think it's really that get back and get up, and teaching people to those social emotional learning techniques that, some kids get from a young age that make a big difference, and some schools don't teach them, and some, I think that those give an advantage. But I think it's really something bigger than yourself, to a purpose, and being a part of something, and feeling safe to be a part of something.
It used to be when we were younger and we drank, and even kids that did drugs, I mean, nobody died. And today with fentanyl, the new paradigm is just, it's shifted. There's lots of kids dying that aren't having any issues with drugs and alcohol. Literally, it's like their first or second or third time they popped a Percocet. So the goalposts have kind of shifted mid-game. And that, again, as an advocate, is something that I'm trying to be a little more sensitive to, that there's a lot of moms and dads out there that have lost loved ones that never dealt with a 4-year, 5, 6-year addiction journey. Their son just literally one pill can kill. And that's really changed a lot of the focus is on. And again, one fear of mine is that everybody rushes to fentanyl, and they just, their big thing is eradication of fentanyl, weapon of mass destruction. And drug dealers are so far ahead. I mean, there are already things out there, and you probably know better than me, Ashley, what's on the market now, that's the tranquilizers, things that are stronger than fentanyl, that the drug dealers are going to be ahead of us. They're decades ahead of us, the drug cartels. So, do we spend time trying to, spend time on the supply side, make higher laws for people selling this stuff, lock more people up that have drug and addiction problems?
Or do we create a world where people don't want to use?
Amen. That's where Jeff Johnston is going to spend the rest of his life, on the demand side. So I don't have any tolerance to argue with people, which is better or more impactful. If you want to be a supply side, then I'm all for it. Majority of my advocate friends are supply side. They spend all their time, protesting and spending time doing that. I don't have that fight in me. I just don't. Right. I'd rather sit in a room of 200 kids and talk about the why. Why do they do what they do? And if they do it, don't punish yourself. We just hope the one time you do it, you don't die.
Right.
That's the problem today. You're not getting second chances like I did. I could pop anything at your age and I wasn't going to die. Today, you can't say that. So, again, if you can make it through the random luck of not having fentanyl, that's great. But then again, a lot of your peers aren't. And, that's the reality. So the demand part is where my heart is. Kids is where my passion is. And I'm trying to do things with our curriculum and with my research and with my advocates. We still need the supply side, right? We still need the people fighting the precursor chemicals from China and the drug cartels in the jungles of Mexico. We need all that. I'm all for that. I don't have the fight in me to go down that road.
Right. But I think to your point, man,
what's that?
Americans are killing Americans. We blame it on everyone else.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, so a lot of this stuff happened because of pharmaceutical companies, and who's the savior that's making a lot of money from the overdoses. So are you telling me that, what is China getting out of it? They're not, I mean, it's made in a lab. This is different than like back in the day when it was in a bathtub and anyone could do it. These chemicals, you have to make fentanyl in a lab.
Yeah.
It's in 100% of the drugs that they're testing on the streets. So it's pretty much in everything. And now xylozine's in about 20% is what and xylozine's been around forever. It's been used for vets. It's
in 20% now.
Mm-hmm. They're finding it in about 20% of deaths now.
That's terrifying. Yeah.
So it's like, the thing is that, so maybe that was something that was a cheaper thing that's being used, but fentanyl was, part of me wonders if part of it was at the beginning to get rid of people that they didn't find to be great in society and that were costing society a lot of money. And then it ended up becoming a bigger problem. But I'm sorry, but it's coming in through the mail. It's coming in through the Mexican border. It's coming in through the Canadian border. And I live in Florida, and guess where it's coming in? I mean, it's coming in from the ports. Mm-hmm. So we blame it on illegal immigrants. We just want to get mad and blame it wherever.
And again, that's that angry dad that I'm not anymore. And there's enough of them. And like I said, I think we need multifaceted, nonpartisan type approach. So we need the supply sides, we need the demand sides, we need everything, because when Seth died, 46,000 Americans overdosed in 2016. It's 107. So everyone knows what fentanyl is, but what's the result? Everyone's more aware. What's the result? Nothing is working. I mean, all the statistics, depression, suicidal ideation, anxiety, obesity, everything across the board for the last 10 years is higher. So, this isn't just one thing. We could eradicate every grain of fentanyl on the planet. I don't think anything's going to change.
No, the next thing will pop up, dude. They'll find something else,
Right.
But I think to your point that, you know, just teaching about mental health, coping skills, this stuff should be part of just regular school curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
To teach kids how to, live life on life's terms. I mean, it's all, no matter what recovery pathway you're talking about, they're all kind of based around certain, like, spiritual truths, these principles. And if you learn to live your life based around those types of principles, that, life is just better quality wise, internally and externally. It really does bleed into every aspect of your life. So why aren't we teaching the kids that? I mean, how much of the curriculum in schools nowadays is shit that you're never going to use in the real world? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they
like
could
most
make
of it.
yeah, they could make it part of that. And I think, that would help a lot with, but kids are still going to experiment,
Yeah.
and, if there's any truth to the fact that if there's any truth to it being like a disease for some people, once they start, they may not be able to stop, or whatever. But yeah, I think even if it is a disease, it's like still so preventable for so many. You know what I mean? Like, but you're right. It'll never go away completely.
Well, it's put into this moral failing box that, Seth had a moral failing. He was a bad kid. He, all the little labels that come on, and so society kind of, I think it's getting better from an awareness perspective, but not from a results perspective. But I think society is now getting a little bit more understandable that, hey, this could be anybody's kid.
Right.
There is, addiction and substance abuse. They don't care male, female, straight, gay, transgender, white, black, rich, poor. It don't matter. And so that's, I think, but you were going to say something, Ashley?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying that sometimes it's not the first time, but it's, to me, you never know that we, like, during active addiction, secrets and shame, like no one knew what was really going on with me. And I'm not saying that it's at the level of a dependence for kids, but some of the stories that I hear, and someone's like, well, they bought it on Snapchat. It was their first time they ever tried it. And I'm like, I did substances for a lot of years and I know what technology is, and I would not know how to. I've been on Snapchat and I've never seen anyone try to sell it to me. No one on Facebook's ever tried to sell it to me. It maybe at a party or something, it would being the first time of trying it, then yes, I could see it. But I don't think that you went on Snapchat and you just decided to, and that was the one time that it happened. And maybe that's what the family believes, and that's fine. But, and maybe it didn't go, and that's fine too. But I'm just saying, I think that the substances are much stronger. I'm not denying that at all. But I think that we play this narrative that it's always the first time. And I mean, that when I was growing up, so many people got pregnant the first time they had sex.
Hey, I got caught shoplifting in 6th grade, and they took me down to the police station to scare me. And I told my dad it was the first time. It's like, it's the first time I got caught.
Yeah, hell yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that makes sense, But I will tell you this, man. I got my girlfriend's got an 18-year-old daughter, and I know some other teens, from the recovery meetings around here. We got a lot of young people because we got like a lot of recovery in my area. And dude, the Snapchats that, and the TikToks and shit, dude, these kids nowadays are just video recording the whole party. They're doing all the drugs on these video platforms, and they're putting the shit out there. And it's so funny because it's like, dude, you're putting that on the internet. I'm so grateful this shit didn't exist.
Me too.
Oh my god,
cell phones and cameras. I'd be in jail still. I'm joking.
So if if you were 16 and you're watching your friends blow massive bong hits into the camera and shit, and they looked and sounded like they were having so much fun, maybe you would ask them like, hey, maybe next time I could come, or can I come hang out? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so I could see Snapchat being kind of a gateway, or any of those kinds of
Oh
platforms,
yeah.
Facebook Reels, whatever.
And I'm saying that that it's happening at parties and stuff. Is if it's the first time that someone's
Yeah.
trying it, and
Right.
it's not happening that I'm just getting bored and I'm looking online and trying to find.
Well, I'm happy you said that, Ashley, because I know lots of moms and dads that have tragically lost their kids to fentanyl that was in Percocet or Adderall. And most of them, and again, I'm going to be very careful here because I don't want to offend any of my friends that hear this, but most of them, the implication when they tell their story is, my son didn't have a problem. This was his first time. Well, they don't know that for sure. I'm guessing that your 18-year-old son, there's many secrets that they have that you don't know, like you did at 18. So I respect the fact that they think my child is the one that was the only time they tried it. But the reality is, it doesn't matter if it was 2, 7, or the 10th time. They're dead, and that's all that matters.
Right.
But the fact is that I don't think we need to brush it off and say, well, the other kids are doing it every day. My son, it was his first time. I always told people after Seth died that I didn't blame it on Seth's peer group. Seth was the peer group.
Right.
I mean, and it's easy for kids to say, oh, it's my son hung out with a bad crowd. Maybe your son was the bad crowd. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is the conversations we got to have, and stop blaming every other son and daughter out there. They're the one that dragged my son down.
And what does that do? It
doesn't do any good. It just
good?
passes the blame to somebody else.
Right.
And I'm only saying that because I'm saying that instead of putting resources into mental health and having resources to teach kids how to cope or to talk about hard stuff, we're fighting to take down these dealers that are on Snapchat, like targeting our kids.
Right.
And it's like, you know what? I'll be 100% honest. I have a 13 and a 15-year-old, and there are days when I am not the best parent. It's not my fault when my kids mess up. I'm not saying that, but guess what? I get distracted. I don't pay the attention to them I should. I miss things. I overcorrect or I undercorrect. Like, I take full accountability that my parenting is not perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And my kids aren't perfect, and that's perfect to me.
Yeah. Good. Well said.
You know what though, Ashley, whenever I'm like, when I have a bad parenting moment, if I can acknowledge it and apologize to my child, or just have a talk with them and explain to them that dad made a mistake, I think that is great parenting. So even when you have a bad parenting moment, you can turn it into like a teachable moment, about owning your shit.
My youngest son, Jason, told me this because I talked about mistakes and stuff, and he said, "Dad, it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it."
Oh yeah.
And I thought, and that's my 19-year-old advising me on, all this stuff. But it's true. They're only cemented as mistakes if nothing is learned.
Right.
It's a teaching moment if something is learned. So going back to the whole journey I was on, I went back and played, should I done this? Should I done that? I didn't do it to punish me. I did it to learn. What was the teaching moment when Seth was given Adderall? What did I miss? What should I tell people? Not what should I have done, but what should I tell people? So I'm taking all those mistakes that I made as a dad, and instead of anointing them as mistakes by not learning, I decided that I didn't make any mistakes. I dealt with the cards I was dealt at the moment in that frame of mind. And it's only a mistake if I don't learn today going forwards when I tell my story. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you something. Maybe it'll make you feel better. I don't know. Maybe it's just a fact. As my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, and we did a lot of the stuff I went through. Every changing foods, added exercise. I made sure there was a certain bedtime. I wanted to avoid medication because as someone in recovery, I was very scared to put her on a medication. And so then I did the research, and the research showed that if they were medicated, their chances of actually having a substance use disorder later was lower because they were being properly medicated. And so um, I, I chose to use medication for. I use a small dose. We tried everything else until there was really hard to I mean, it was really affecting her life dramatically. But I'm just saying, I did all the research and I chose the medication. So I don't know that there's anything you could have done differently.
Yeah, but you chose the medication after you kind of did a set of research and you kind of exhausted other ways, right?
Yeah.
See, in my situation, I just went to medication first. And
But
that's,
even the research shows that the medication actually has less chance of
well, that's
somebody
encouraging.
than somebody
Yeah.
not being medicated. So yeah, if they're
Well,
so
my
that's what I'm
problem was
saying.
I handed him the bottle. That was my mistake. I should have just taken one Adderall out, gave it to him, kept the bottle. But I never saw the bottle. He went and we got the prescription. I gave it to him, and I just, naive dad. My dad was a doctor. I kind of grew up in that world. I just thought he'd self-medicate correctly, but I found out he'd selling it at school and taking double doses. So yeah, I agree with you, Ashley. It's just maybe my teaching moment is I should have kept the bottle. Maybe that was maybe that's my teaching moment.
But I think you'd be surprised how many parents out there aren't familiar with the fact that Ritalin and Adderall are, used as street drugs, sold like that and used in that way, and that they're basically meth. It's pretty much just like doing meth. And
Well, there's an Adderall shortage in the country, and you also know that more adults are on Adderall than children today.
wow.
Well, and maybe there's a misdiagnosis too, because if you legitimately have ADHD, it tends to calm you down and not speed you up. And
gotcha.
But
so not if you abuse it, though.
Right.
That's the thing.
Well,
if you take more than you're supposed to, you're gonna get high. Like
I don't know that. I assume it. I assume.
No,
that.
I know that.
Because if you take it regularly, is it therapeutic for you that it doesn't? I mean, why would you take more if it didn't speed you up?
I'm not on the stuff. I'm just saying I've known a lot of people who they are prescribed it. It does mellow them out. Put them on an even keel, help them focus. All those things that it's supposed to do for
if they take the right dosage.
Correct. But they get high on it sometimes, they do. And then,
well, I just want to first of all say hi, Brett.
Hi.
Sorry.
I've seen him. I've talked to him on email many times, but didn't get to see his pretty face. So
isn't he handsome?
I apologize. So our air conditioner went out yesterday, so I had to go get a window unit to put in my daughter's room before bedtime. Because
where are you located, Brett?
I'm in Texas.
So we have Minnesota, Texas, and Florida, and Iowa covered.
Hell yeah!
Very hot.
We got the whole country covered.
And I'm just asking these questions because I like to learn.
I love them.
To hear how it different reacts for.
Do you have more for me?
Well, I wanted to mention. So my birthday is Christmas Eve, and I found recovery in 2017.
On what day?
It was in May.
Okay, mine was Christmas Eve. Mine was on your
birthday.
I'm
saying, my birthday.
That's crazy. So my recovery day is your birthday. We were destined to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. It's
and mine is my birthday. My recovery date is my birthday.
Interesting.
But that was not planned. It just ended up working out that way.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this space. I really am. This whole advocacy space and the podcasting and what you guys do and the conversations and the tour and all the things. It's just there's a lot of beautiful things going on. And if we can just start converging and doing more work together, I think we can start to see these numbers go in a different direction. I think I saw the other day, maybe I was talking to you, Ashley, about this, that 825 Americans die every single day from the deaths of despair, alcohol, suicide, and overdose. 825. Now, that's a big number. That's a death statistic that the media likes to focus on. But we all know that the collateral damage and the destruction that comes into a family doesn't have to involve death. Millions of families have never had death in her, but their families are destructed and destroyed and decimated over alcohol and substance abuse. So I think as advocates, it's easy for us to focus on the death numbers. And trust me, I have 2 in my family. I can certainly hang my hat on that. But I think the non-death numbers are more important because we can do something about the living. There's nothing I can do about the 825 that died today, but telling the story, collaborating with people, those millions of families that they have Seths in their families, they have Prudences in their families, and they haven't died yet. That's the hope. That's why you guys do the recovery revolution. You know, that's why Ashley's active in what she does. And Brett, I don't know you, but I know you an advocate in this space as well. I'm sure you have a story if we talk long enough that would tear my heart out. But that's what's great about this. I'm really excited about this space. I really, really think there's hope for mental health and for advocacy, not just in America, but in the world.
Amen, brother.
Brett's the youngest one of the group here, and he's got the longest.
I'm guessing I'm the oldest.
Well, he's got the most time out of like the group here. Like well, all of us actually. He's got the most. He's been in recovery the longest, and he's got 2 children that have never had to see their father in active addiction.
Good for you, man.
Thank you.
That is awesome, Brett.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I'm so proud of you, buddy.
I think it's great what you guys are doing. These formats are awesome. You know, and it's there's something therapeutic about sharing stories with people.
It is. And Jeff, I'm just grateful for you. I'm grateful for the fact that you are in the financial position to be able to just go and put every ounce of your heart and soul into this advocacy. And boy, is it, you know, it's blessed. I don't know if you're, you know, what higher power you believe in, but, you know, it's like God has blessed. It is your ministry, even if it's not a ministry, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's so awesome that you're able to get out there, travel the country, go on tours, and that your boys have decided to join alongside you on that path as you put it out to them, you know, the fork in the road story that you said. And I'm just so happy that you're out here and you're making good use of that pain and impacting lives, brother.
Thanks. I like the way that's put. I think if I can, you know, use my I guess privileged position to be a voice for those that, you know, have to go to work in the hospitals and have to go teach and have to be a police officer or a fireman or whatever it is. If I can be that voice for them, because I don't have to go to work. I'm really lucky. I think I can do that. I think that's kind of like, I like being a foot soldier. I enjoy being in the trenches. Now, a nurse is really in the trenches.
Right.
A dad, you know, doing what I do is not in the trenches, but I'm like a line or two behind him. You know, I'm a row or two behind him. But I don't have any intentions of like slowing down or, you know, retiring. I just, to me, that's an antiquated concept. And I just, I've kind of like found my true calling through some really frickin' bad shit. But doesn't that happen to everybody that has a real, true epiphany moment? Most of it comes from something very horrific.
Yeah.
2 most important days of your life: the day you're born and the day you figure out why or find out why or whatever the quote is, right?
Find your purpose.
It took me, you know, realistically, I'd have to say the day I quit drinking. So I would have been 52. But I like to say the day Seth died was my awakening. And, you know, surprisingly for people, I'm agnostic. I'm not religious. But I'm spiritual. As anybody here to this moment, I'm as spiritual as anybody. I talk to my dogs. I would hug a tree if I could. You know, I'm very, very spiritual. For me, you know, that higher calling was never like a godlike thing for me. It was more internalized. It wasn't, you know, otherworldly.
But you know what, brother? It's all
doesn't matter. Yeah, I know.
It's all the same thing.
It doesn't matter. And I find that out through my meditation that, you know, call it what you want to call it, but there is no me. There's just we. There's Jason, Brett, and Ashley.
Amen.
And that's us. And
and that energy flows, you know, that energy flows through our realm. It flows through the universe. It's all just known by many different names. That's the way I kind of view it. You know, any belief system, it's the same thing, you know.
There's just something beautiful about when you're in a room of people that have, you know, that feeling of love and inspiration. You can feel it. Your hair stands up and you just smile more. It's like, that's all free. That's out there in abundance. And we need to go cultivate more of it. Whatever we're doing, however you do it, we need to do more of it, and less pharma, less anger, less hatred, less labeling, less diagnosis, less blaming. All that stuff has just not worked and never will. But I think we can do a lot of good in just being kinder to people. That's kind of where I've settled. I just don't have any hate in my heart. I just don't get mad a lot, and I attribute a lot of that to meditation, to be honest with you. Meditation's a chapter in my book, and I attribute it to really saving my life. I'd never done it before Seth died. I couldn't see myself ever stopping my mind, but I realized quickly that meditation isn't that. You're not. It's the opposite of controlling your mind. You're just being aware of your mind. You're witnessing. You're not judging. So I can sit, my mind can race, and I have some great meditation, and my mind never slows down. In 3 years, I've maybe only had 5 times where I can say I actually felt like I left my body, like I went somewhere, like shot out in the universe. I came back and I had a loss of time, and I thought I meditated 10 minutes and it was 30. That's only happened very infrequently. Most of my meditation sessions are rather boring, but I do them every day, like going to the bathroom, like eating, But if we can get, I think the Dalai Lama said, if he could get every young person to meditate, he could eradicate violence in 1 generation. That's how much he believes meditation is so good for the soul and so good for humanity. And I have a hard time. Again, it's another free thing. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
It's like most people in recovery, most people that are really struggling, they don't have a lot of money. They can't go buy a $100 course. They can't go take, they can't afford a lot of things. And so it's like, what are some things we can give these people that are free? And that's really something that I'm really interested in trying to find out. And when I find something that's free, I like to promote it out on my platforms,
Right. Or like just even doing this, is like what I was saying earlier. I hope that people walk away having, picked up some new tools for their toolbox, some practical tips that they can start putting into action right now, and that might benefit their lives in a better way. And that's free. It's all free, right? The best things in life are free.
Well, if no one does, I did.
Amen, brother.
And that's what I tell when I give a talk. I'll say, if nobody here benefited at all today, I know one person did for sure, and that's Jeff Johnston. So for me talking in front of an empty classroom, I'm still going to benefit. So there's zero downside. I'm going to walk away from every conversation a better person than I was beforehand. And I thank Ashley. I mean, I reached out to her on LinkedIn. She had no idea who I was. I'm not going to say stalked you, but I think I sent a couple of email or a couple contacts, and you replied, and I just looked at her profile and I thought, well, shit, this is somebody I need to get to know. I mean, she's in a position where she's impacting many lives on a big scale. And I want to be around people that have a goal of changing the world, and you don't do that sitting at a table by yourself. Just don't.
No, you don't.
So I got 3 new friends in my arsenal, and I got, and I love it. And I want to continue this, and I want to, have you guys be on my radio show and get you on my podcast, and maybe on the tour stop. And I'm going to be in Texas. I'm going to be in Florida, and we're stopping at the Hazeltine Betty Ford already in Minneapolis.
You are?
So, yeah. Yep.
Dude, I'd love to come out. I'd love to come out there.
I may be out there 2 days. I'll tell you the date. I'm going to be at Hazeltine on, where is it? On 9/30. And then I'll be there on 10/1, I think. They want me to talk about my app I'm launching for Gen Z. So I'll be there 2 days. And I don't know if Ryan, Ryan Hampton, right, Ashley?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ryan,
Jason.
Yeah. Ryan's one of my best friends. He's on my board of my app, and he's gonna, I love Ryan to death. I just think the world of him. And he's one of those beacons of hope and inspiration, but you know what? He's not afraid about rolling up the sleeves and getting down and dirty with people that he doesn't agree with. And I like that. that. But Ryan's the one that set up a lot of that. That's how I met Jeremiah Gardner up at Hazeltine. And
awesome.
How do you know Ryan?
Mobilize Recovery.
Okay. Yep.
And Jeremiah's cool, dude.
I love him.
Love that guy.
He's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Brett, I'm looking, I'd like to come to, I went to Austin last year, and we did a stop. We did a stop at a place called Simple Promise Farms. and the guy's got a retreat, a sober house for adults, for men. He takes up to 8, and then they farm, and he takes all the proceeds. He takes them to farmers markets, and they raise money, and that's how they keep their farm going. Is these men come in, and it's not free. They pay out of pocket, but all the proceeds they make on the farm, they take to farmers markets down in Austin, and he's doing a great job. And I've met so many really freaking cool people on the tour last summer that changed my life.
Yeah,
I really did.
Well, I definitely want to hook up with you, man, when you come up. So
yeah, absolutely. And all you guys go by your name on all the social media, so I already hook up with Ashley. So Brett, so you're on LinkedIn and stuff.
I only have a page for the podcast.
Okay, and it's
Recovery
yours
Survey.
is Recovery Survey podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and you do the Way Out podcast.
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn, but I haven't updated my info or like really used it in a long time. But I think my notifications are on. I would still get if you sent me a message. Yeah, because I know you can use it kind of as a social platform. It's just I don't work in this field. This is all service to me. I don't make a red cent off of any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just it keeps me full, keeps my cup full. And like I said, I just learned so much from all these different guests and all the different perspectives and stuff that I get the pleasure of meeting these people. And it's been one of the biggest blessings of my life to be able to do these things. And I never would have thought I'd be doing this shit.
Well, and Ashley, I was going to ask you, what do you see as like the biggest challenge right now out there for recovery? Maybe Florida specific, or what's the biggest obstacle that you see?
Division.
Oh yeah.
I think youth are struggling, like you've said. And I think a part of that is because, as adults, we're modeling that behavior of divisiveness and fighting and not being happy. We're not teaching them how to, like when I got into recovery, I learned how to be grateful for things. That's one of the skills that I was, and we're not teaching our kids, as a society, not individuals,
right,
to be grateful. We're not teaching them how, and I'm going to tell you, like, the honest truth is, I was raised believing that this was the greatest country on the planet. And we were, and I'm not saying it's a bad country, but with freedom comes great responsibility, and we're not being irresponsible.
Yeah.
And right now we're not the greatest country on earth, to be honest. And I hope one day we can get back to, that. But if I'm being honest, we're not there right now. And
it used to be you could travel. Like I went to Europe a couple times pre 9/11, and you could say you're American, and it's like you were idolized. And now friends come back from Europe and stuff, and they almost don't want to tell people they're from America, and that's unfortunate. A lot of people have died protecting us in the military, and to see it now, end up this way. I feel sorry for the people that have sacrificed their lives. That the respect around the world isn't what it was, what they died for. That's very unfortunate.
We spend almost the most in healthcare. We spend the most on schools, and we don't have the healthiest nation. We don't have the most educated population. We don't have, like we used to have, like all these things that we've fallen, and it's, you don't have to be the best, but if you're going to spend the most money, you should be at least up there.
No, I agree. But again, Gen Z is a large generation. They're the third of the world right now. There's 70 million Gen Zers in America.
They can be helped though. They've got
what I mean.
A bad shake, but if you meet some of them and talk to them, they get it.
Well, the good news is they're the first generation ever to have the number one New Year's resolution be mental health, and 37% of Gen Zers, I think 37% of Gen Zers, or what's the statistic, had mental health treatment. In other words, they acknowledge that they need help and they're getting help. But the problem is, I don't know if the help they're getting is actually the help that is working.
Right.
You know, that's the disconnect.
Right.
Getting help and getting help that's changing behavior and helping is not linear.
Yeah,
Right.
we need to
know?
teach wellness and give people tools for wellness.
Yep.
And that's where
Ding.
we're missing it.
Yeah.
You know, I loved that question you asked, Ashley, and I'm going to give you my opinion on that as well. So what Jeff had asked is what you thought was the most the biggest
Challenge.
barrier,
Yeah,
the biggest barrier to
challenge,
recovery.
Yep.
And I loved your answer, Ashley, the division, because as Jeff said, the opposite of addiction is connection. But I think it's ourselves, right? Like, we need to get out of our own way and stop thinking that we can fix stuff on our own. The biggest thing that I learned in recovery, the best thing, was that I don't know shit. And I need to, if I'm not being open and authentic about my struggles, as well as my successes, all that stuff, then I'm cheating myself. Because maybe sometimes I can get on here and I can say something that's going to impact somebody else's life or help them out. But at the end of the day, sometimes I got to be the service opportunity. Sometimes I'm the one that needs help. And I think a lot of people, especially, it seems like the smarter you are, the more of a liability it is. Like, like, I've seen the most amazing people that don't make it out of this stuff alive because their brain doesn't let them concede. It doesn't let them ask for help. They think that they are smarter, better, faster, stronger, and they're not. We're all human. We all need help. So I think that we get in our own way, and I see it a lot out here in the trenches with the newcomers, with the people that are seeking, where it's like, man, just get out of your own fucking way.
Well, and Jason, the advocates too. Look how many advocates struggle with their own mental wellness because they're so giving and they're putting out everyone else's fires, and they get home at night. They get home at night and they're like, "Who's put out my fire?"
It's caregivers fatigue, man.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
It's a real thing.
Yeah,
hey,
and
that sounds familiar, Ashley.
Yeah,
you guys have had this discussion before, I take it?
Very recently.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big deal. I think there was a recovery, and maybe you know who this is, but there was a lady that ran a recovery center that took her own life last year, and she was fairly well known. I think John Shinholzer sent me the link, and I don't remember who she was. Maybe she was in that area, but she actually ran a recovery center, and she was in recovery, and she was like the face of the organization, and she took her own life, and I have to think it's a lot of, there wasn't anybody there for her,
And sometimes you get so, like, you see it in the people, so you want to help them so much, but you don't ever take the time to work or to address yourself. And I don't know what works, because, like, for some people, they're like, oh, self-care. And I'm like, the worst thing you could do is put me on vacation for a week and not let me talk to, like, that, like, or, like, when I get tired, I do pretty much, I sleep for a long period of time, but I don't sleep enough during the week because I have so much passion. Or if can't sleep, then I'll get up and work or do whatever, because I'm not just going to lay there and let my mind, I'm going to be tired in the morning anyway. I might as well get something done. But I don't even know where I was going with that. But I'm just saying, for me, it's sitting would be like torture. And so we have to find that middle ground and that awareness, like being aware and being able to say, okay, I need to turn my phone off today and not listen to anything, even though I do care deeply, but this is what I need to do for me. Having the ability to do that is important, I think, at some point.
Yeah. You guys probably see a lot of different things through your shows and stuff and talking to people like I do. And it's I think the encouraging news is that there's just so many right ways to do this recovery thing. There's more right ways than there are wrong. Hands down. I mean, I could write down 50 things that are optimistic, positive, things that you could do in your day. And, there's only a handful of wrong decisions, drinking, drugs, lying, stealing, cheating. I mean, that's about it. There's not like 100 things you can do wrong, but there's more options to do things good. And I think if kids knew that, so they don't feel like they're painted into a corner or backed into a corner that, I don't have any choices. Like, you have lots of choices, just what you eat. Go through an average day and just write down, and you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked how much sugar you put in your body. And that if you have attention deficit, well, what do you think sugar is going to do? You think that calms you or excites you, And I know a friend of my son's that is on attention deficit, like meds, like he takes these things. Then he comes over here and drinks, like 400-ounce Mountain Dew. And his thought is like a statin is for cholesterol. Well, if I take my statin, I can have pizza. It's like, just because you take Adderall or take whatever for your attention deficit doesn't mean you can load your body up with sugar, because the Adderall, whatever, offset. It's like, and that's, that's just some things that I kind of see when I observe,
Yeah, it's just abusing your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Well, I think I think sometimes that you're doing it and you still do it anyway. It's not a big deal. I'm only doing this once, and then it becomes an everyday. I'm drinking this Mountain Dew and whatever. I don't drink Mountain Dew, but I'm just saying, there's plenty of things I do that are bad. Don't you worry. Right. I don't drink coffee. I don't smoke, and I don't drink Mountain Dew. But
you don't drink coffee? How the hell do you do that? You don't either, Jason?
No, hell yeah, I drink coffee.
I snort coffee, man.
I was shaking my head because I'm thinking, how are we
I just
friends?
poured down my mouth. Well, I switched to decaf now. I go one full strong one. I do half and half, and then I do decaf, and that's like all before like 7 a.m. And then I'm done with caffeine the rest of the day. But yeah, I have to have one good shot to start my day.
Yeah, I used to drink Diet Coke like I was going out of business. I don't like coffee. I don't like the taste of it, the smell of it, any of it. But I tried to get rid of it. I think it's been about 3 months now since I stopped drinking Diet Coke, but I've had like maybe 5 or 6 in that 3 months. So I do allow myself here and there, but for the most part.
Hey, this comment by Faith is pretty cool. The first part, you can speed through that, but then I'm now a huge animal advocate for all animals and captive big cat crisis. It's like, that's, purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So she pivoted, she found something to really dive into, and that's beautiful. That's great. That's what advocacy, that's what recovery is all about, finding another, something you can really be in love with. And I think that's awesome. I think most people in recovery, if you talk to them, they've gravitated to do something to replace the drinking and the drugs that they did, or at least that would be the plan, right? To find a replacement.
Purpose, something bigger than yourself.
Right. That's huge. Yeah.
And make sure you still get gratification from it. I mean, it feels good to serve somebody else. It feels good to give back. If you find one day it's not feeling so good anymore, maybe that's a time to reevaluate. Maybe you're at that place where you're burnt out and you need to focus on you a little bit. I don't know what that looks like for each person. I don't know the right answer, so don't listen to me, but I do think.
She says, I'm crying happy tears listening to you mentioning me. No, I love it, Faith. I mean, who doesn't love animals and kids? It's like, those are the two things. If you don't know, you don't have a passion, you don't really have things. Animals and kids, it's always a default option. It's like, you can't go wrong.
Right.
There you go. I love it. I mean, I have 3 pets. They're all rescues. I feel good about it, but yeah, if you don't have a passion and you want to kind of make one up, there's always going to be animals that need homes. There's always going to be kids that need love, that lost their dad or mom or whatever. Yeah. And that's always going to be there. So I tell everybody that doesn't have a passion, those are good ways to start. Right. That's great, Faith. Congratulations.
Go Faith. And it's been a blessing having you on here, Jeff.
I
You're
love it.
awesome.
I could talk. I mean, I really do. Someone once said, God, Jeff, do you like talking about this chaos and misery and pain? I said, well, I don't know if maybe like's not the good word. I feel honored to have the privilege
Right.
to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be a day, if there is an afterlife, there'll be a day I'll see my son and my wife again. I'll see my grandmother and my pets that died, and I'll see everybody else. And if there isn't an afterlife, then I have to make this heaven on earth today. And I got to do the best I can because this is all I got. So it's like a win-win, no matter what your thoughts are on what happens when you're gone. This shouldn't preclude you from being just a really good, damn good human at the bottom of the day, And so I live every day trying to make this heaven on earth. And that's my thought process. And I'll get double rewarded if there's an afterlife and I see Seth and Prudence, then, well, hell, I'm seeing them now when I'm alive, and I'm going to see them when I'm dead. So I can't lose.
Amen, brother.
It's all perspective. But yeah, I've been honored to be on the show. I really want to continue this at some capacity. So when I do my podcast, I've never done a multiple podcast. So I want to throw it out, standing invitation, to any of you three that want to be on the show.
I'll do it.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Awesome. And Ashley, I think did I already invite you yet?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just did.
I was a call-in person on your call-in show.
Yeah. And again, I can't believe you set this up and I forgot. I ran home from the studio. I'm telling Brett, I was like, man, I got to come home. And I ran in here and I got online and I saw Ashley and I didn't see your face. And I thought, well, hi, Ashley. Hi, I'm Jeff. And yeah, I know who you are. And I'm like, oh shit.
We were in a meeting earlier.
Yeah. It's like, I should have recognized your voice, but I guess I'm seeing too many people. That's a good problem.
Yeah, right. First world problems.
You guys are great. It's been great to come into your world tonight, and I'm happy for all the comments, and I'm really proud of everybody that's in the good fight with us. And whatever your way is the right way, and if you have a way that works, share it. Don't brag about it. Don't be judgmental. Just share it. Yep. Share it.
And I think you asked me, what did I think was the biggest barrier or hold up to care? And I'm going to give you the opposite of that. What is the solution? And the solution is having conversations like this where we talk about the solution. There's not just one. And when you don't talk about problems all the time without talking about a solution. And this is how we change the narrative, is showing that there's solutions and talking about ways to make them, everybody able to access them all.
Couldn't have said any better. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, thanks so much. And I honestly know we'll continue these conversations, down the road. So
absolutely, man. Pleasure meeting you.
Yeah. So I'll for sure see you in Minnesota, and then Brett, I'll figure out where you live and figure out in Texas when we're going to be going through there. And then Ashley, let's make Florida the best stop. Let's make it real impactful. You guys have any other questions for me? Like I said, I could keep going forever, so I'm not trying to end the show. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, Brett, you missed it. This is his third podcast today.
Yeah. Wow. and my 1 hour radio show I did.
God, your butt's got to be sleeping.
Tomorrow's a fairly light day. I think I have 3 total. And then I have a Rotary presentation I got to make via Zoom for like 100 presidents in District 6,000 in Iowa here. But yeah, so it's like, but why not me? Why not?
It's amazing.
I've
done it. I've done it. I've done a few shows in one day before, and yeah, it's a pretty long day sitting at the computer for me. But I'm not used to. I don't work on computers. I'm like,
I can imagine what Ashley's day are like. I mean,
yeah,
the group that you run, how many people you oversee, it's got to be intense at a minimum.
I got off my paying job at 5, and I've had a meeting at 5,
Wow.
6, 7, 7:30, and then this one at 8:30.
Well, I love you. I think it's awesome. We need more Ashleys and we need more Bretts and Jasons. But Faith wants to know. Yeah, Faith, I can be followed. I don't know if you want to type this in. I don't know how to add my website. It's pretty easy. It's just, yeah, there you go. www.livingundeterred.org. And that's where my podcast is. You can reach me, email me, whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's the best place to learn more. But yeah, let's plan on reciprocating this. Maybe I'll try to ask my editor if there's a way to get multiple guests on. I kind of like this format, to be honest with you.
Well, I think to your point, like it's good to have the one-on-ones because then you can really deep dive into that individual. But then, for future reference, and we've done it quite a few times on the way out, and it's a weekly thing here, obviously, but just to have like random panel discussion episodes where maybe you delve into a certain topic or, something like that, as opposed to, somebody sharing their story. And Faith, you can find me. You can look me up on any social platform by my name, and you'll find me.
And you also have the Recovery Revolution on your shirt, recovery-revolution.org.
.org.
Yeah, I want to get the Recovery Revolution on our platform somehow. So whether it's a link, or we could spend a whole podcast just on the Recovery Revolution, or even have you call in my show. A couple of you could call in. We could do one show for an hour on what Recovery Revolution is. And, we went an hour and a half today. It's like, shit, an hour will be nothing for us now.
Right. Yeah, dude. I'm like you, I just love to talk and talk recovery. I have them goosebump conversations, and it's like
every day.
I get lost in it. So.
It helps. It's like a mental workout,
It's awesome.
We could go over 2 or 3 hours. I mean, I didn't even hardly talk at all.
I'd like to learn more about your situation, Brett, because everyone has one thing I will tell you that I was going to ask, if you guys ever address this, or if you ever thought about this, consciously, that you just haven't shared with people. But I think there's the risk in our space as advocates in what I call grief comparison, in that, I'll share my story with somebody and maybe their worst thing is their cat died. And instantly they're like, well, I can't compete with what happened to Jeff. So my pain should not be justifiable because I didn't bury a child. My kids are still alive. I didn't lose my wife. But as an advocate, I'm like, you know what? That's not true. I'd like to be able to talk you out of that perspective, because if the worst pain you have in your life is the worst pain in your life, then it's the worst pain in your life. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
And here's the thing, man, your story, your story matters.
Right.
And that's
pain shared is pain divided.
Exactly. It's what I always tell people when I see them doing that. I think I struggled with that a bit when I was first starting my recovery.
Right.
And I also had like some survivor's guilt a lot of the time.
Yep.
But it's like
I went through that.
To accept the fact that God kept you here for a reason, and to be open-minded enough to and like brave enough to say yes to opportunities that arise to share your story, because you can impact people. And then that's you can't just hide in your shell, because then you're just gonna get sicker because of that stuff, and it's gonna grow and get stronger. But if you just talk to people about it, man, it just kind of all withers away, and it's like, oh.
Do you think sometimes kids, one of the reasons why they keep things inside is that they feel like mom and dad won't understand, because what I'm going through seems like I shouldn't be going through it. Like maybe it's something like a pimple. They're literally suicidal over something like that, and they can't talk about it because they framed it as being so inconsequential. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't
Maybe
know.
they see mom and dad are so stressed, I don't want to give them another problem.
Oh yeah, good point.
And I know that my kids, like,
very
their
true.
stuff is like, even like it absorbs their whole world when something happens, and I allow them. I'm like, you telling me it's not me not knowing is what's causes chaos. Or causes stress for me. You telling me what's going on and giving me the ability to help you or to talk about it with you is definitely easing my burden. But that's a lot of times what they say to me is, well, we know you're stressed. We don't want to add more stress or.
Right.
I didn't think about that. My sons are 19 and 22, so they're a little bit older than yours, but I go back to when they were that age. Yeah, you're right. I think because that was a time when I was going through a lot of real big stress in the family. Then I ran the risk of neglecting their needs, and again, that's a teaching moment. That's a learning moment that I can share the story with other parents with young kids saying, hey, when you're going through your own shit, don't forget, so are your kids. And, adults are the ones supposed to help kids, not kids helping adults.
Right.
So we need to put our things on hold, help our kids, and then help ourselves. But anyway, yeah, it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack, right?
Well, what's funny though is when you're sitting in your own problem to the point where you're neglecting your kids or anybody for that matter, you're just being very self-centered, even if it doesn't feel that way. It's a form of self-centeredness, and like, I don't know about you, man, but when I am being attentive to my kids or my spouse or my friends or whatever, it gets me out of myself. So it in turn makes me feel better than I did before because I'm not sitting there dwelling in my own shit. You know what I mean?
Speaking of kids,
I just
I'm gonna let you guys go.
Yeah, I
need to put mine to bed. But it was great.
I'm gonna take a quick picture of this because I want to put a post and say I had an hour and 42 conversation that felt like 15 seconds. So
yes,
yeah, that's great. We can wrap this up. Again, thank you very much. I look forward to reaching out. Probably do some stuff this weekend. Maybe send you some links, and then we can get you on the podcast and move from there. And then,
sweet.
Again, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Bye, Ashley.
Bye. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Stick around for a second, Jeff, so you can plug your stuff here when Brett the Maestro starts doing this.
Yeah. I came ready.
The DJ.
I'm not ready. All right. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when we go live, which is every Thursday night. Hey, Jason, you want to tell us about your podcast?
Sure do. I co-host the Way Out podcast with my good friend Charles. We switch hit the interviews. We do the topic episodes together. And it's just we share powerful recovery stories or unpack recovery power topics to help you find or jumpstart your own recovery. And then we also have the Way Out playlist, same logo. Just change the last word when you type it into playlist instead of podcast. And that's a curated list of all of our guests' songs that symbolize recovery to them. It's exclusively on Spotify. Sorry if that's a problem, but yeah, check it out.
Love it. I also do my own solo podcast, which has been dubbed as Morsels of Recovery by Charles from the Way Out podcast. I do about 30-minute episodes, new episode every Wednesday. And LC, who could not be with us tonight, also does a podcast, Recovery Soul Food. Check that out. And it's only about 3 weeks old at this point, but Recovery Revolution Podcast Network, I believe we're up to 25 or 26 shows in total that have now all come together. And we're trying to spread the message of hope and recovery and boost each other and guest spot and promote and all that kind of cool stuff. So check that out. If you go to recovery-revolution.org, there's going to be a page, a little podcast tab that has everybody listed, and you can click on the pictures of the different album art and stuff to go to different shows, and it's really cool, so be sure to check that out. And we also release this live broadcast as an audio version podcast, so if you're subscribing to all these other shows, look for this one as well. Usually I get it up about an hour or so after this finishes. And I think that's
You're the man.
I think that's about it.
Nope. You gotta
Oh yeah, Jeff
show
stuff.
Jeff stuff.
I'm a
Yeah,
failure.
jerk.
I didn't scroll down far enough.
You jerk. I like
I'm
that.
so sorry, Jeff.
No, I didn't call you that. I was repeating what Jason said.
Yeah,
that's not what
ready.
I think.
I'm
Yeah.
ready. I have several things ready to go. So
No,
He
that's
knows
all
I
good.
mess with him.
That's all good. Yeah. So yeah, I
Playful
mean,
banter.
absolutely. So most of everything I have is at just livingundeterred.org. And then we have another website, livingundeterred.com, that is highlighting the tour that we did last summer. So basically either one of those, www.livingundeterred.org. And our book is for sale. All the proceeds go to my nonprofit, which is called the Living Undeterred Project. That's my book. That's actually a picture of Seth, and that's a real photograph he did on our porch when he was probably about 8 or 9, the rainbow.
With the rainbow behind
Yeah.
him.
And what's funny is there was a rainbow in our backyard last summer, and I took Brighton out, his daughter, that, like I said, he never met. She died. She died. She was born 3 weeks after he died. But I took her outside with the rainbow, and I said, "Hey, honey, put your hands up in the air and smile." And you won't believe it. She did it, and her tongue hung out the same way as her dad did. She's never seen that picture.
wow.
Oh my god.
It gave me absolute chills. Her tongue hung out on the same side. And I took
You
it.
just gave me chills.
Yeah, and I
just got
posted it. I
goosebumps.
posted it on all my social media side by side. It was one of the most viral things I ever posted. It was really kind of just a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got a podcast too.
Yeah, the podcast is surprisingly called Living Undeterred with Jeff Johnston. And I
What?
just, shocking. So for 3 years, I've just been finding stories of resilience and, people survived sex abuse. I've got men in their 50s that have come out that they were molested, that we've spent an hour talking about it. Women molested. I've got alcoholics, recovery. I've got, suicide attempts. I've got, just stories of just complete resiliency. And that's what the Living Undeterred, my movement is, I guess, or my brand is, that, things don't happen to you. They happen for you.
Yeah.
No
Yep.
matter what, even death can be something that happens for you.
My therapist was the first person that ever taught me that human beings all have the innate quality of resilience.
Yeah.
And that was a great comfort to me at that time, because I was still not sure if I could ever be a functioning member of society.
Right.
Because I thought I did too much damage to myself back then. So
yeah, we're very resilient as species, and we don't take advantage of it enough. And just the mental resiliency is underplayed, and certainly the physical is too. We don't work out enough. We don't eat healthy enough, and yeah, we have a lot of upside. Our species has a lot of upside.
yeah, totally, man. Oh man.
Good stuff, brother. I'm gonna sleep good tonight. I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. Tomorrow I have a little bit lighter day, and my son's coming home for the weekend. I'm gonna be chilling. We're gonna go watch some basketball this weekend, and the Iowa women play tomorrow. And you haven't seen Caitlin Clark play yet. You have to. She's like the Steph Curry of female women's basketball. It's gonna be fun. So
Nice.
all right, guys. I love you both.
Love you too, man. Thanks for being here. Super awesome.
My pleasure. We'll be in touch. Okay. Take care.
Peace.
All right. Good night, everybody. We will be back again next Thursday night with another great guest at our normal time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Remember, guys, progress, not perfection.